All right, what is up, everyone? This is Wakeman. Today, I just thought I would record this little video. I've been working on these slides for a couple of weeks now, and finally, everything has come together. I finally finished it, and I want to talk about my experience with draft in Generation 8. Uh, I'm not going to be talking too much about regular VGC because I didn't play too much regular VGC in Gen 8, but I played a lot of drafts. I played, I believe, 12 seasons. I'm gonna basically gonna go through all my teams, all of my seasons, just give a quick breakdown of all of them, and then I want to discuss some mons. I've kind of divided some of my favorite mons up into their roles and kind of talking about one or two from each role that I usually prioritize, and just kind of talk about why I like them. You know, why they're so good, why I've drafted a lot of them multiple times, and why you might want to consider them even in Generation 9. So, with that being said, my first league ever was the Pokemon Battle Kingdom. I entered in their first season of their VGC league. I think they had done singles before. Um, you know, this was not the most stacked league in the world. I went 8-2 in regular season, was a finalist, but I didn't quite get the win. Um, this was an interesting experience. I didn't know the tier list was bad at the time because I was also bad. Um, but bad tier lists ruin drafts. Simple, like very simple. Tier 4 Persian Alola. Arctozolt didn't have Slush Rush at the time because this was pre Crown Tundra, so that actually I think it's still low, but like that's not a absolutely wild placement. Tier 3 Azumarill is just wrong. Um, so there's definitely some issues here with this tiering, right? And I my prep wasn't really prep like it says here. I would just kind of like bring six mons with good attacks and then just like call it good. I didn't flowchart ever. Not that I'm still not a super flowchart heavy player, but um, I never flowcharted. I never like brought setup or like support mons with like I don't think I brought fake tiers on Persian once. I might have brought it on Ninetales, as weird as that is. Like I think I remember that. Um, Ally Switch is broken. Bronzong won me a couple matches off of Ally Switch before I swore it off. And then yeah, going for low tier value early. I learned this really early on. It makes a difference. I'm not a super low tier heavy player. Like I'm not your like Goomers of the world that make their tier fives feel like tier twos or whatever. But getting like good value picks in low tiers means you don't have to push to make them perform well. So then my next season was season 2 of the same league. I beat Bene and Flamingo in regular season. I went 9-1 in the regular season, and then I did lose to Flamingo in semifinals. Um, so this was a restricted format, and restricted formats suck. They had a weird system here where you could either you could take a restricted, and then you'd lose your tier 1 and tier 2, and you'd have to make those up elsewhere. Or I think in tier 4s, I think you had to make those up in. I could be wrong, or one of each. I don't remember. But you sacrificed a tier 1 and 2 to get a restricted. And me, being as unexperienced as I was, even then I was like, okay, that's right. Like that's just the right thing to do. I'm doing this, and it was right. Dialga, we'll look at my stats later for everything, but Dialga is still like one of my top 5 or 10 like highest killing mons in all the mons I've ever used, just because it was so broken in this one season. I think it went like 33-3 or something ridiculous. Like like what's that, an 11 KD, something like that. We'll look more specifically, but again, this is where I realized not only are bad tier lists bad, but it's also fun to abuse them. Hence, Togetic in tier 4, Hitmonchan in tier 5, um, things like that. Like again, Persian was still there for some reason, even though I got finals with it the season before. Raikou tier 3, just weirdness. So I mean, like, look at how I was able to support Dialga. Like, Dialga Togetic like with Togetic as a tier 4 is just unfair. And Marowak was insane. Um, and then, like I say here, my playstyle still wasn't super developed, and my prep was starting to get much more specific. Like I was starting to bring a lot more different tech moves, and I would bring, I brought physical Dialga a couple times. I brought like an offensive Super Luck Heat Blast um, Togetic or Fire Blast Togetic. So that was cool. It's still one of my favorite sets I've run. Um, Prep was starting to get more specific, but just the fact that I had Dialga, like sometimes I would just like, okay, Dialga, just jam Dialga and I win. Um, and then the next one was the restricted Pokemon Draft League, another restricted format. You had to take a restricted, you had to take a mythical. Restricteds could not Dynamax. I this was just a weird season. I beat Lucian, which is a win I was proud of. And by the way, when for these notable wins, just because like I beat you and I don't put you in a notable win doesn't mean I'm like, oh, that was free, or oh, I think that was just bad. These are just like the ones that stand out in my mind as ones that I'm like really proud of, either because of my prep or my play was good, or I felt like this coach was better than me, or they were having a better season than me, or their team was better into mine, whatever. So like, just take it with a grain of salt. I learned here that coaching is unbalanced. Zamazenta just like clicked coaching and Snarl like all season, and then like I just maxed whatever. I really like don't remember this season that well. Um, it was an 8 week season. I went 3-5, missed playoffs by like one match. I think if I had won one more, I would have made it in. Um, because a lot of people did badly. Runarigus is cool. I ran like offensive Runarigus, I think more often than I ran support Runarigus, but I ran Ice Shard and Aqua Jet into weakness policy with it. I ran like Crafty Shield support sets. Um, and again, still had not really established a building style or like a play style yet. As you like, this is kind of like a balanced offense type of team. Um, Also, without transfer moves, Blastoise without redirection is less than ideal. I found out it was hard to get this thing going. Um, so then this is where I consider this VBA season to be my like quote unquote breakout season in terms of getting more into the broader draft community and starting to establish my own style. Um, I picked up some good wins. Ret, Curry Puff, Ruby T. I just remember these being really good sets where my prep paid off. And these are all good players, so I was proud to beat them. I went 8-2 in regular season. I was a semifinalist. This is where I learned, okay, hyper offense is what I need to do. Like, this is how I play. This is how I do it the best. My team was broken. I mean, the fact that this team wasn't even the best in the league goes to illustrate that my third point here, Gmax tiers suck hard. um, it's just a bad idea. I mean, thankfully, like we're out of that phase where that would even be a possibility. But many leagues learned very quickly that tiering Gmaxes separately is fine. That's fine. But having a whole tier for Gmaxes where you have Cinderace and Appleton in the same tier is just so incorrect. Um, I learned here that like I really like to have mons that do damage. Like a lot of my teams before, I would be doing damage with maybe 3 or 4 mons, maybe. Whereas like on this team, everything does damage except Clefairy, and Clefairy just supports the damage dealers so well that it was like still worth it. But even then, I didn't bring Clefairy that much. Even though it looks so good on this comp, I didn't bring it that often. Um, but like I learned here, like stuff like Spectre, Gardevoir, Braviary, Tentacruel, Luxray, like they can all do a lot of support stuff. Luxray has Intimidate, Tentacruel has, Fast Haze and stuff like that. Acid Spray, I think. Spectre has, Wisp, Bulldoze, Snarl, stuff like that. Gardevoir, Trick Room, Will-O-Wisp, Shadow Sneak stuff, whatever. Braviary has Tailwind and Defiant support. Like they all provide like supportive roles, but can still do damage. And that I learned that like that's how I prefer to have my teams structured. Um, and then the other thing was a dedicated TR mode is not mandatory. Like if you look at my last 3 seasons, I had this like Bronzong, Azu, Greedent, Golurk kind of TR core. I had Slowking, Marowak, Turtonator here, and kind of Dialga if you want. Um, Here I had, Runerigus, Armaldo, Runerigus Scrafty, a little bit less dedicated there, but this is where I was like, okay, I have the tools to stop Trick Room, so I don't need to ever play under it. Um, so this is kind of where like that fact sank in for me. And like I really want to highlight like my learning process as I go through this because I maybe new players could benefit from that and like know that it's a process and know that it takes a ton of time. So next up was GLDL season one. This was another rough season for me. I drafted very. I think this isn't the original team. This is my team that I finished the season with. Um, I think the team was phenomenal. I still even to this day I stand that this was like a top four team in the division. I just I messed with it a lot with trades. Some of them were good trades, some of them weren't. Um, I missed playoffs, went 3-7. I did beat Dan, which was about the only win that I really like remember super well. Um, I think part of my problem with this was I noticed Garchomp, Coco, Corviknight looked like such a cool defensive core, right? Like you have your electric, ground, flying core and your fantasy core all in one in like 3 mons, right? I thought that was sick. But I just, I started to, I drafted it and I was like, okay, this team is awesome. I have so many answers defensively to things. But it didn't fit my playstyle because I drafted everything with defensive synergy almost exclusively in mind. And I hyper focused the type cores so much that I didn't think about like, am I like using these together ever? Um, I also didn't focus my low tiers down enough. Like Clawitzer did work, but other than that, all the low tiers kind of fell flat for me. Trades won't magically fix bad performance. Like if you're doing badly with the team, I think you need to address your play, your prep, how you're using the team, how you're trying to make certain mounts function in one way or the other, and address those things before you address, oh, I need to make trades. And then again, team was good, just not for me. So then I entered this low tier season, the Erie Division Draft League, um, and I went 6-4. I was a quarterfinalist. I lost to Sasori in the first round of playoffs. I beat Raz and Burst. I remember those being really good games. This was this was a very fun season for me. Low tier formats are really cool. I really like them, but tier list balancing is so important. Like, um, I didn't do that well with Salamence here, but like the fact that I was allowed to have Salamence in a low tier league is kind of sus to me, even to this day. Um, but it was fun. It was a good league to be a part of. Um, I wasn't familiar enough with low tier mons to like know what a lot of them did, so I really had to research a lot. And again, shown is shown a word? Well, offensive utility was shining. Shown. That really looks like a word or not a word. But yeah, stuff like Mantine, Sylveon, Obstagoon was able to like provide, and Salazzle too. I didn't write that, and Jinx really. Was They were all able to provide like supportive roles but still do damage, and that was really cool. Mantine went crazy this season. I think Obstagoon was my MVP. Salamence did okay, but yeah, I mean, again, like this low tier leagues are really fun. So then I entered VBA season 3. This was not as dominant of a regular season performance for me as my first season. Um, I went 6-4 instead of 8-2. 8-2. Yeah, it was 8-2. Who else did I? Oh yeah, Wolfen. Right. But I made it to semis here again. I beat Rhett, Rolo, Raz, and then Theo and Ruby T in my playoffs run before losing to Lucian. Um, don't okay. No shade to VBA. I have enjoyed my 3 seasons there so far, but blanket banning legendaries is very dumb. Um, it creates a weird power vacuum. It's hard to tell where mons are going to end up in tiers. You need to have a good tier list on top of that. Um, if I recall correctly, like this tier list was fine, but it was just it was just hurt by the fact that it was a non-max format, which at the time not everyone had been playing in, not everyone had drafted in, not everyone had made tier lists for yet, and then on top of that they banned all legendaries, like not just not restricteds, all legendaries. So like Tornadus, like the genies were gone, the lake guardians were gone, the tapus were gone, and it's cool in theory, but the problem is you end up with like again like this weird power vacuum. It makes tiering really difficult, um, and yeah, the tier list here was fine. I don't recall that this tier list being horribly unbalanced, except for tier four Thwacky in this format is kind of crazy. But I did learn here that hyper offense can use Trick Room as well. This is my second time using a Azumarill, and it just put in so much work again. Reuniclus was my TR setter, and I think honestly my Trick Room mode did better than my. I think it did better than my fast mode here, and I had a good fast mode. You know, Thwacky, Noivern, Bisharp, Cinderace. But like Azu, Reuniclus, Drampa was just my carry so many weeks. And yeah, playing in a non-max format was really good for my like pivoting and positioning because you couldn't just like mash a max option and just like hope that it works. Um, so yeah, this was a good season for me. I really this one really established my ability to in my own mind to like not do great in regular season and then but then still make a deep playoffs run. Because I think the two people I beat were both seeded higher than me. Because they had better reg seasons than me. Um, but yeah, this team was really fun to use. Next up, GLDL season 2. Um, I'll talk about this more at the end as well. I went 9-1 in regular season, and this was my first league that I won after 8 seasons. I got a win. I beat Raz and Yasha, who had a great run in PDPL, if I remember right. I beat Rolo in a real close Game 3 set. And then I beat Hunter twice and Dina twice. I played Hunter in finals, Dina in semis, and I played them my last 2 weeks of reg season as well. And I beat them both times. What I learned here, this was where I really realized, like, wow, Cinderace is, unfair. He's way more splashable than I think a lot of people give credit for. Um, I was just able to bring him to so many matchups because of how splashable he was on a Sun mode, on a TR mode as like the one fast option in case for when Trick Room's up. It just has so many and like with a Tailwind mode as well with like Braviary. Um, it just has so many like good use cases that are all like separate but unique and good in their own way. Low tier prankster support is awesome. Purloin should have been tier 3. I didn't think it was before the season, and then I drafted it there, and it overperformed pretty much every time it hit the field. Um, Cinderace under Sun did like committed war crimes. like I set Sun with Ninetales, and then I clicked Scarf Howl into Cinderace, and I one-shotted a Dynamax Mesprit with some bulk investment. Like, it wasn't super bulky if I remember right, but it had bulk investment, and it just died. Like, that is ungodly amounts of damage. And I think that's something that's overrated is just like I mean it's hard because not like a lot of weathers require you to double up on typings, But like with rain, but like you can like there are a lot of ways to benefit from weather without just having them on that has like a weather ability. Um, like Cinderace got so much from having Sun up, despite the fact that it wasn't, um, despite the fact that it like doesn't, it doesn't get a speed boost or anything like that. It just hits so many more calcs. I would just get these ungodly like obscene OCOs on things, and it just made no sense, but it was so good. Um, yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to talk about this season more. I know there's a certain unit of seating that I think people probably want to hear about that I'll talk about later. But yeah, Cinderace is broken. So next up, I drafted in the UDL Season 3. This was the rebranding of the EDDL, the Erie Division Draft League. So here I went 8-2. I was a semifinalist. I got eliminated by Yeet in semifinals. I beat Thunderball Toby and Yeet in the regular season. Um, so you may look at this team and be like, how in the world is that possible? Who lets you do that? Though the answer is auction drafts let me do that. Just don't. Just like nobody needs to, like people need to just not touch auction drafts ever again. Like let it be a thing of the past. Let it die out. It's already dead. Let it just stay that way. They suck. However, high power formats are fun. A lot of the leagues I play in, like the VBA, GLDL, are like tend to run a little bit lower power level, and I wouldn't necessarily advocate for leagues to let things be this powerful, um, like 3 tier 1s, 3 tier 2s, but also like it was a lot of fun. It's cool when everyone has access to high-powered things. You need to have a balanced tier list to make it work well, and auction is not a good way to do it. But I do think like high-power formats could be really cool, like are really fun. I need to draft Tornadus again. It seems like the perfect mon for my play style. Reggie Drago, I didn't hit the field once. I felt so bad. I was so excited to use this mon, and it just did nothing. Like, just never hit the field. I just every team had a good steal, every team had a good fairy type because of the high power level and the ability to grab multiple tier 1s and tier 2s. So I just couldn't bring it. Which kind of segues into my next point. It's like high power formats are really fun, but something this high power really discouraged me from bringing anything other than like my top 6. Like pretty much my 6 every week were Cinderace, Primarina, Torn, and then 3 of either and then 3 out of the combination of Lucario, Marowak, Persian, Serena. So like I never brought Regidrago. I brought Pincurchin like twice and it sucked. I brought Oranguru like once and it was meh. I brought Kadabra once. It was funny, but it didn't really do what I needed it to. Like I had a matchup where my TR mode on paper, like I was running like Serena and then Oranguru and Pincurchin like and Marowak, like a slow Marowak. All 3 of those mons looked so good into the team. I think it was into Pedons. It looked so good, but I just couldn't compete because without my top tiers, like the power level of my stuff was just so low. I just couldn't keep up. So I think that's a problem with this kind of format, and I think that's a benefit. Avoiding that is a benefit of a lower tier, or a lower power tier list. But my next season was VBA season 4, another one where I went 6-4. I got top 12, beat Razdan and Theo in regular season. My team was really fun in this season. Again, this was another one where they made the arbitrary lore classification ban of banning all legendaries. Haunter is insane. Hippowdon in Tier 3 is an affront to nature and should never be allowed to happen ever again upon penalty of death, I guess. I'm very and this one I really learned like obviously right, I had clutched up and won finals and all this in GLDL season 1, but or season 2, sorry. But I had never been in a win and in situation where like if I win this I make playoffs, if I lose I don't. And it was against Theo, and this established to me that like I can clutch up and just win those. And cuz I 2-0'd him and made it in. And he had a much better season than me too. I think he went 8-2. So like his season was stronger than me, and I was really worried. I thought his matchup was good into me too, but I prepped well, I played well, I didn't take it so seriously that I psyched myself out, and I clutched up and got in. So that was really that was good for me to experience, right? Because I had never been in that position before. But I don't have much else to say about this season. It was fun. Behem was awesome. Noivern again was great. I had Barrascuda and then dropped it for Inteleon, both great. Clefable's awesome. Haunter. The team was good. I really enjoyed this team. Um, so then I drafted in the sandbox, and this was a little cup format. I okay. So I beat Raz and Toxic and Otto in regular season. Otto especially is a good win for me. I was really proud of that one. Um, Little Cup is awesome. It's really fun. The level of offense compared to the level of defense is very high, and so you end up with like a lot of really fast-paced gameplay. Um, but balancing it is difficult. Um, it was hard. Our tier list was very subpar. Like it was very unbalanced, and we have a lot of changes we're gonna make. But it was hard to know too because it was the first season. There's really little cup VGC drafts. They don't happen very many places, and so we didn't have a lot of data to go on. And the data we did have to go on was suspect at best. Um, I This team was unfair. Like I just had matchups where I was like, okay, cool. Mudbray, Lilleep in the back, whatever up front. It's whatever. Like I'll win. And that sounds like arrogant, but it was true. Like not because of my play, but because of my team. And like a good team, like this team was so good that it genuinely bypassed the need for me to like play or flowchart well. Because I was like, okay, I can just like lead Meowth and Solosis, and I'll set Trick Room. I'll fix something out. I'll let Meowth go down. I'll kill one thing with Solosis, and then Mudbray comes in and I just win. Like it's things like that. That it just like that happened. I think I ran that same flowchart probably like at least 6 of my weeks. I went 8-1 in regular season. I got to finals and lost to Hunter. I hate Scald, by the way. Just thought I would mention that. Um, the team was definitely either the best or the second best. The only one that I think is in competition with it was Hunter's team. I think like he and I had the two best teams in the league, and the next one down was like on an SABCD. Wow, I don't know why that was so hard to say. SABCD like kind of tier list. It like if ours were S tier, the next team down was like B or C. Like the gap was huge. And part of that was like we just like we drafted good stuff, but part of it was just like a lot of people just didn't know anything about the format. Um, and yeah, again, it's a fun format. I don't I don't take the format super seriously, but it was a lot of fun. So then my final season, again, a really chill thing for me. I went 2-3. I missed playoffs. It was the UDL off-season event. It was like just a real quick 5-week low-tier season. Fun team. It was fun to just play and not worry about like winning so much. I beat Charles, which I'm proud of. He's a very good player, and I'd never played him before. Um, this also taught me like I can just go into every match believing I'll win, and like I mean worst case scenario you lose. It's like oh well. But if you just go into every match believing it's like yeah I'm gonna win this, it's so much better for at least for me personally. But yeah, team was really fun. Gengar Haxorus Bisharp was a great core. Kingler did some stuff. Scarf Dug Trio was a really good set that I ran a couple times. Magmar just like soloed a matchup. Yeah, again, low tier formats are really fun, and it gave me an excuse to like draft some stuff I had never used before. Um, so the next up here, I'm gonna like just talk about some roles and stuff, and some mons that I've drafted in those roles, and then I'm gonna highlight like one or two mons from each of those kind of subcategories that I think are really good. And just keep in mind, like none of these are like mutually exclusive, right? Like you can be an offensive mon and a tailwind mon, which is actually my favorite kind of tailwind setter. Stuff like Torn, Noivern, and my highlight that's coming up next. But these four are like some of the tailwind setters I've drafted. I drafted Butterfree too, but I didn't really function it as a tailwind setter very much. I mean, Torn is objectively the best tailwind setter in the format, in my opinion. Um, but all four of these, I drafted Noivern twice. All four of these just did a lot of work. They were really good. But my highlight is Braviary. I drafted this twice. I drafted it in VBA Season 2 and then in GLDL Season 2 where I won. Very good max candidate. Scarf Tailwind's awesome. Defiant is a really good, makes it a really good partner for stuff like Cinderace. It's just overall, like, I just love the versatility of it. Like, you can max it with Tailwind, um, or you can bring it like as an intending to max set, but with Tailwind instead of like Protect, and you could do like really cool stuff. Like I ran against Yasha in GLDL regular season, I think week 7 or 8. Um, I think 7. I I like led Braviary Cinderace. Game 1 I clicked coaching and then started spamming max airstream with Braviary. But then game 2 I clicked Tailwind and max Cinderace. So like you have really cool mix-up options with this mon. I'm a huge fan of this mon. It's won me a lot of games. So then is Trick Room Setters. I've drafted a lot more of these, even though I don't tend to use them as much. As weird as that is, um, some of the notable ones for me were like I think Behem was phenomenal. Aromatisse was in my on my GLDL champ team. I didn't use it that much, but like it was super good anti Trick Room stuff. Like I never like set Trick Room with it, but I definitely brought it to like deter stuff like Glastrier and Marowak. Um, but like yeah, these were all good for me. Oranguru didn't come much either, but my favorite one that I've used and the one that has performed the best for me is Reuniclus. Um, Very offensively statted, like it's got like a base 125 special attack stat if I recall. Um, and like it says here, like it's my kind of TR-mon. Like it sets Trick Room up with good abilities and with versatile abilities that you can switch between pretty regularly. And but it also has great offensive output. Like you have the option. I ran this in a non-max format, right? So you have the option of Psychic. It doesn't have great coverage. Like its coverage moves are like Thunder, Focus Blast, Shadow Ball, Energy Ball. Like that's about it. But like that's enough, you know. And just having like a good support move pool. I use Recover quite a few times. I use Helping Hand a lot. Safeguard, I think I even brought a couple times. It's just really good at getting Trick Room up, and then once Trick Room is up, it doesn't just sit there, which I really like. I think that's a problem with Trick Room in general. Is sometimes you'll lead like Fake Out plus Trick Room, and then you set Trick Room, and you waste like 2 turns getting your setter out. And so I like that Reuniclus just puts pressure on right out of the gate. So then Prankster Mons. Believe like strangely enough, these are the two that I've drafted. I guess I'm wrong. I drafted Tornadus. But these are the two I wanted to highlight in this role. I drafted Liepard in VBA Season 2 and Purloin in GLDL Season 2. They function very similarly. Um, Liepard is faster, has better unburden sets because of that, and also has a faster fake out, which makes it more consistent. Purloin is more budget friendly and can be bulkier thanks to Eviolite. I have made this thing live ungodly hits because of Eviolite. But both are really good. They were both like really high up there on my like levels on like for in terms of like level of performance. In both teams I had these on. Stuff like Thunderwave Charm, Weather, Snarl, like just really good disruption, and I think disruption is one of the best forms of support for like hyper offense teams, which is again how I tend to play. Next up is the other Prankster Mon that isn't a Prankster Mon, Alolan Persian. This thing functions similarly enough to Prankster Mons that like I kind of consider them in almost the same role. Because it has a good speed tier, it's like 115, which is slowly getting power crept out. But at least in Gen 8, 115 was very, very good. It beats pranksters 1v1 almost all the time because it can taunt them and they can't taunt it back because it's dark type, which is really good. I found several matchups where that was insanely useful. Um, Stab, Foul Play, Technician, Snarl, and Icy Wind were like really great chip. Like if I was running Sash, I didn't need to run Fur Coat, which is a broken ability by the way, which doubles its physical bulk. Um, but like it gets the very standard. It gets Parting Shot, which is awesome. Um, like Charm, very similar stuff to a lot of other prankster mons. Icy Wind, um, so it's very good, very versatile. I've drafted it 3 times now, and it's like overperformed every time. So then redirection, these are 4 that I've drafted. They all performed well. Clefairy and Togetic were very, very good to me. Fungus and Butterfree were a little bit. like I've drafted Butterfree twice. I had it in season 1 of PBK, and it did okay. It did fine. Like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't insane either. I drafted it in VBA season 3, and then I dropped it for Drampa, I think. And Fungus I picked up on like week 2 of GLDL season 1, and it was, again, I brought it a couple times. It kind of just died. But that season was just weird for me in general. Um, they're all good though. Redirection's super valuable, especially Follow Me compared to Rage Powder. But my favorite redirector that I've used is Clefable. Magic Guard Life Orb is the funniest set and also like a really good set. I had a matchup in VBA. I think it was against Ryan Hebert, um, where like I was just looking at it and I was like, if I just bring like Fairy Electric Fire on this thing and put Life Orb with Magic Guard and then set Tailwind, what does he do? And the answer was he had nothing and it 2-0'd him. But like it's so good because like in a max format, things like stat boosts are going on all the time, and so the fact that it just ignores them with Unaware and like setup mons in general is really good. Um, excuse me. But again, like Magic Guard is a real set as well. Um, I ran this with Excadrill in VBA season 4, and it was just unkillable sometimes because like you get it with the defense boosts and it's just unstoppable. But yeah, super good mon. I think this mon has a lot more versatility and it's not item locked like Clefairy and Togetic are, which is really helpful. So then, shockingly, the fast offensive pieces are kind of the ones I tend to gravitate towards the most, because they just fit my hyper offensive playstyle really well. Um, these are all ones that I've drafted and they've all performed like really well. I'd say probably out of these, Spectrier was my favorite. But Inteleon and Coco were also really good. Um, just having like a Mon with such a good speed tier, like 110 and up, or I mean, Garchomp is obviously a little slower than that, but just having a Mon with such a good speed tier that can just put out so much pressure is just so good. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about a little bit more about my goat, Cinderace. In my opinion, this mon is top 10 in max formats. I legitimately think it's one of the best max candidates. I think the mons you take over this are like Torn, Goltrace, Dragapult, Celesteela, maybe Glastrier, maybe, and then like Cinderace. Like I think it's like borderline top 5, definitely top 10 draft mon. It's so good. Libero again. I mean, everyone knows what Cinderace does at this point. It gets stab on everything. In a max format, the fact that it can stab Knuckle, stab Fireball slash Flare to change weather or just do more damage, stab Airstream, stab Steel Spike. It's just so good. And like those are the best ones, but it has a lot more. It has Darkness, Mindstorm, Flutterby, stuff like that as well. I I think a lot of people don't give this mon enough credit for how splashable it is. Like it's just a fast offensive mon. It kills things without support. And does it like support? Yes. Like does it like to have redirection? Does it like to have tailwind to beat weather modes? Yes, absolutely. But does it need it? Not really, in my experience. And it just kills everything. Like there's very few mons in the format that like Cinderace just can't hit. Like Rotom is one of like Rotom Wash is one of them. I think Rotom Heat as well. But like there's very few. And so it's just so good to have a mon with just such insane coverage. And again, I think it's really splashable. So then we have slow offensive pieces. Again, I draft these a little less frequently. Drampa, Gigalith, Turtonator. I've drafted Turtonator and Drampa both twice, and they've both done really well for me. Gigalith was only once for about half a season. It was also really good. But yeah, these mons are great. Super good. I you know, they're strong and it's just nice even on a fast team to draft like one of these just so you have like anti-trick room. But my favorites, I have two. Azumarill, which I do end up running as in Tailwind quite a bit, but I think I've run it under TR more. Belly Drum just makes it one of the most threatening setup threats, like period. Like once this thing gets a belly drum up, it's pretty much one of the strongest possible Pokemon. Aqua Jet Oko's like Aqua Jet at +6 with huge power just threatens to Oko like entire teams. Um, and like the typing is great. I mean I know I've talked about this mon a bit already, but it's so good. And then Marowak is a little bit more underrated in my opinion. Phenomenal under Trick Room and under Tailwind, both again. I think I've run fast Marowak. I ran fast Marowak a lot more when I had him in UDL, but when I had him in PBK, I ran slow a lot more. Um, it provides no item pressure to other offensive mons because it runs Thick Club as its item, like 90% of the time, if not more. So like you're not worried about like, oh, where's my life orb gonna go or where's my choice band gonna go, because you just put Thick Club on this 9 times out of 10. It has great coverage. It can hit like electric, steel, rock, not flying, fire, um, dragon, dark, like good coverage. And then phenomenal because a lot of Tailwind setters have earth or are flying type, so you can spam EQ next to them. And like I've had situations where I'm like, oh, it sucks that I can't put White Herb on this, and then I check the calc at -1 and it still just dies. So like the mon is just obscenely strong. Um, and then I want to talk about two weather modes I've drafted as well. My sun mode, which I had in my very first season, and then also in my GLDL championship team. Um, I think this is the best sun core. I like Torkoal's good, but it is usually tiered higher than Ninetales. Um, so I think in like a setting like GLDL where Torkoal's tier 1 and Ninetales is tier 2, I think this is like the best and most powerful Sun Core. Like you could obviously go more budget to fit your team, right? Like Lilligant or Vileplume or whatever, but I think this is the strongest core. Because these function together really well. Like Torkoal sets Sun and then is slow, you know? So but yeah, I mean these mons function together like really well, but they also function separately really well. Like I ran Ninetales, like a Scarf set a lot. I ran it next to like with Howl next to Cinderace. I never clicked Nasty Plot with it, but I think I brought Nasty Plot in PBK if I remember right. I don't have my pace from that season, but like yeah, Will-O-Wisp, Howl, Foul Play, like it's just really good. And then the options of Heat Wave, Flamethrower, Overheat, Fire Blast, like fire types just are spoiled with how many good move options they have. Sleep Powder Pressure is insane. Like the fact that like yeah, I could max and set Vine Lash and just start like killing you slowly over time, or also and like break your sash for free just because I guess. But like or just like sit there with a sash and click Sleep Powder is like such a huge mix up, and it's like if you call it wrong, you might just lose. Um, like I don't think all Sleep Powder mons necessitate a safety goggles or a lumberry, but like against Venu, like I think it kind of does because like it's so fast. Yeah, I'm super high on these mons. And then my sand mode I had in VBA. I think Exca Hippo and Exca T-Tar are both very good. I'm not going to say that one is objectively better than the other. But Hippo was tier 3 in this format, so I just went with that because that is, again, an affront to all things that are good in this world. It's less versatile for sure. Hippo can do a lot, but Excadrill is kind of forced to just attack, which is fine because it's got like a base 130 or 135 attack stat, so it can do that. And it actually does a lot more damage just directly out of the gate than the Sun mode, which is also nice. But Hippowdon can max as well. If you're getting defense boosts up on Hippo, then it just slowly becomes like this unbreakable wall. Excadrill is one of the strongest attackers, like just on turn 1 in the format, with one of the best offensive typings for a Dynamax format being Stab, Quake, and Steel Spike. And then Mold Breaker, like some mons get Mold Breaker, and it's like, when am I ever going to use that? But like Mold Breaker, Excadrill like kills Rotoms. It kills like Levitate mons in general. I think it's really good. And then some low tier mons. I didn't choose like one to highlight, but I just wanted to talk about these. Like I've drafted Throw twice, Glaceon twice, Haunter twice, Cragano like 2 or 3 times, and Thwacky once. All really great. I'm not a super low tier heavy player. I tend to focus more on higher tiers and getting value out of them instead. But these are some mons I've drafted that didn't feel like low tiers when I used them. So then, these are my top 10 draft mons. Most of these were already talked about, but Cinderace, Azu, Venu, Persian, Braviary, Spectre, Lipard, honorable mention, Purloin, Marowak, Serena, Ninetales, Kanto. Just again, all super versatile, all super good. These mons have been they've both performed very well for me, and they've just been all really fun to use. So then, this is the part that some people might have been trying to get through this entire video just to see, and this is the beanbag mindset. And so basically, I played every match of my GLDL Season 2 championship run in a beanbag in my basement. They're right behind me right now, actually. I have this blue beanbag, and I sat in it for every single GLDL match, and I won all but one. So then the question that I think a lot of people might have is, does the beanbag power me up? Because when I wasn't in the beanbag, I wasn't winning leagues. So short answer is yes, and I have a lot of evidence and math and numbers and statistics for why. Essentially, how many finals have I reached in the beanbag, right? One. How many finals have I reached without the beanbag? Also one. Sandbox. How many championships have I won in the beanbag? One. That's GLDL. But how many championships have I won without the beanbag? Unfortunately, 0. So the answer is clear. Hashtag beanbag carried. I will fully admit that I am carried by the beanbag. But, gosh, that's so dumb. Anyway, that being said, I know that was short, but I wanted to actually analyze things in this video.